Welcome to the premiere of Lost Horror Media, the show where we will chip away at that iceberg of lost horror and uncover content that has been lost or rediscovered over the past 100 plus years. Now, I figured for this premiere episode, we would start with some deleted scenes from something familiar. We're diving into the bloody waters of Camp Crystal Lake, but not quite as you remember it. That's right, we're taking a trip back to 1981 to dissect the censorship struggles and lost footage of everyone's favorite hockey mask slasher in Friday the 13th Part 2. And yes, I know, this isn't the mask from Friday the 13th Part 2, but I had the sack head here, it didn't look right on camera, and this looks pretty badass.
You don't want to die of...
On the inside.
Or simply rip his head off.
Before we begin, you can get your very own 2's Clue shirt on our merchandise store, or you can grab some of our other shirts that are inspired from our conversations on this channel, including the great debate that's been occurring since 1996. Is Stu alive? Is Stu dead? Grab a shirt that says Stu lives or Stu's dead. Show your support. Show your allegiance on where you stand in the great debate. Friday the 13th Part 2. Can you believe, or did you know, that it got an X rating a whopping 8 times? Shocking, right? But fear not. What was lost has now been found, and we'll be unearthing the lost carnage and digging into the chilling mysteries of the deleted scenes. So grab your sleeping bag, avoid counselors who are making out, and get ready to lose yourself in the lost footage of Friday the 13th Part 2.
Terror is not over. Friday the 13th Part 2.
Just in case you've been living under a rock, let's catch everybody up on Friday the 13th Part 2, which picks up right where the nightmare left off. Alice, the sole survivor from the first film, finds something special waiting for her in her fridge. That's right, somebody with a serious grudge and a head in a box has some unfinished business. 5 years later, we find a new group of young, ambitious counselors that are about to get schooled in horror. They're training at a camp suspiciously close to Crystal Lake. And one by one, the unsuspecting teens fall victim to a brutal slasher. But this isn't a reanimated Mama Voorhees. The killer stalking them is Jason Voorhees, Pamela's vengeful son, who, plot twist, never actually drowned. Yeah, this undead mama's boy is ticked and ready to unleash his rage with a sack over his head and a spear in his hand. Friday the 13th Part 2 would debut in theaters on May 1st in 1981, slashing its way to a strong opening weekend with $6.4 million on just over 1,300 screens. Now, the film would ultimately earn $21.7 million, which is a significant return on its modest $1.25 million budget. However, despite its financial success, Part 2 couldn't quite capture the lightning in the bottle of the original. While it was profitable, it only sold around 7.8 million tickets, which is almost less than half of the 14.8 million tickets sold by its predecessor. Renowned critic Roger Ebert wasn't impressed with Part 2. He dismissed it as a generic slasher flick, lumping it in with many of the forgettable films of the genre. He wrote a scathing review while giving it a half a star and declared that Friday the 13th Part 2 was a cross between a mad slasher and a dead teenager genre.
I walked into the theater, I sat there, I thought, gee, the first one made so much money, maybe for Part 2 they decided to spend a little money, spend a little talent, have a little imagination. The movie is so cynical. It's simply a series of mutilations and murders. This movie is made by people who hate movie audiences.
Well, the other thing that I can think of is I had the same expectations. I said, well, let's see, maybe they'll go another way. Maybe they won't have anybody killed. Wouldn't that be clever? Wouldn't that be challenging, fresh? No. Bang, bang, bang. And we both hated Friday the 13th Part 2, another movie about a mad slasher with a knife, a hatchet, and a machete.
So it'd be an understatement to say that we both hated Friday the 13th Part 2.
Right.
Now, despite the harsh critics, as mentioned, Friday the 13th still went ahead and made a bunch of money. But what happened to all of the scenes that were cut out? You would think that maybe some point we would get a director's cut, or we would find them on the special features of a DVD or Blu-ray release, but unfortunately that's not the case. So what exactly was cut out? Here are some of those scenes. An additional close-up of the head in Alice's refrigerator was cut. Additionally, Alice's death scene was longer and more graphic, showing an ice pick exiting through her face. Crazy Ralph's death lingers longer as he slowly dies from being strangled. The scene where Jason kills a policeman is extended. The slit throat effect for Scott was considerably longer, with a lot more bloodletting. Mark's death shows the initial impact of the machete hitting his face before he falls backwards in the wheelchair. That's my favorite kill of the franchise. What's yours? Let me know by dropping that in the comment. Now, perhaps the most infamous of all, the double impalement scene originally showed a spear penetrating both Jeff and Sandra in graphic detail. A still of this scene was published in Fangoria magazine before the movie was released, and it was later reused on the back of the VHS release. The uncut footage shows the impact of the spear with more reaction shots and more gore effects. Vicky's death shows more footage of her leg wound and lingers longer on her dying. The uncut shots ends with the camera panning over to Jeff's corpse. While these scenes were cut to get to an R rating, director Steve Miner made a couple of cuts of his own. One being the original ending, which featured a mummified head of Jason's mother with her eyes opening and her smiling in a freeze frame just before the credits rolled. He thought that this would take away from the impact of the film. Now, there are some cuts that had to be made because Paramount Studios was about to get into some hot water, and this was due to actress Martha Colbert, who played Sandra, having lied about her age and filming a sex scene that involved full frontal nudity. So obviously, no CP is allowed in these type of films, and Paramount drastically cut down that scene to make sure that nothing of her was revealed. For years, fans have craved an uncut version of Friday the 13th being reassembled, or those scenes being put onto a special features section of a DVD or Blu-ray. But some bozo over at Paramount threw away the original negatives of the film. Like, how do you do that? I can understand today accidentally deleting footage from a drive, but how do you go and throw away footage from Friday the 13th Part 2? The movie was making money, and I'm sure it wasn't done right after the film came out. I'm sure it sat there in our archive for a while before it got thrown away. Dumbass. Now, a glimmer of hope arose in September of 2020 when Scream Factory announced that they were releasing a complete Friday the 13th Blu-ray collection, including the long-lost footage from Part 2. Samuelson Studios, who spearheaded the search, explained this on their Facebook page. The footage resurfaced on a VHS tape owned by special effects artist Carl Fullerton. He saved the cutscenes to showcase his work despite the heavy censorship. Fullerton had editors compile the cuts onto a VHS for his portfolio. Now, while the tape has been shown before many times over the years, it no longer was playable. This is something that happened back to VHS tapes, where the tape inside it would wear out from multiple plays. Thank God they had a solution. The process is called baking, where they were able to revive the footage for a transfer. Although lacking audio, the visuals remain remarkably well preserved. And on October 13th, 2020, the Friday the 13th Blu-ray box set was finally released to fans with the lost scenes. You can snag your copy on Scream Factory's website or various online retailers. Do you own this box set? Me, personally, I have not picked it up yet. It is on my wish list of things that I do want to own. It's down there on the list, but eventually I will get around to picking it up. But this is an important example of why physical media is so important. Because you get, whether these box sets or you get single release movies that have special features like bloopers and cutscenes and interviews with cast members, and a lot of times these things inspire a whole new generation of hard directors and writers and filmmakers and actors that are out there. So keep physical media alive. But I don't want to get onto a whole debate about why physical media is better than digital media, especially when you don't own the digital copy unless you download it to your computer. Let me know what you think of Lost Horror Media. And have you seen any of these scenes before? Did you know about these missing scenes that were out there? And would you eventually like to see a remastered cut of Friday the 13th where everything is put back together and we get to experience the movie for what it fully was, minus the CP in the film? Now, before you go, don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's continue the conversation in the comments. Well, until the next. See ya.
Friday the 13th, Part 2.